So I think the hurdle I see is just that we can do it all, right? And maybe not helping oneself out to see how others can maybe help me in this case. So maybe we don't have it in our families, but you have folks up here, right? You have folks in different parts of the campus, right? Your professors, right? The student workers, your colleagues, your peers, you have it there. And I still see that as a hurdle and something that I hope we help each other out get past is that we have to do it all on our own. Because nobody, right? The term I hate, and I also tell this to my business colleagues, is self-made fill in the blank. Nobody's self-made. Nobody's self-made. Yeah? You look at a mirror and nobody else is in the world, right? There's no comparative, no superlative. To say you're the best compared to who? There's nobody else there. Mm-hmm. Yeah? So I think that's the biggest hurdle, is thinking that we are on this on our own, and hopefully we can get past that mindset and help each other out, right? Because it's actually a virtue, not a deficiency in needing help, right, from each other.
I agree with Alberto. You know, I see it now here at the college. Sometimes when I speak to students that are here for the first time, is I think the most common hurdle is not asking questions, not seeking support, not seeking help. I think that you know, not only Antelope Valley College, but most institutions of higher ed have programs that are there to assist you. I agree that sometimes they're not necessarily just there knocking at your door and you have to go find the door yourself. But I think if you ask the questions and you ask for support at the college or at the university, there's going to be someone that can guide you. Even if you don't have that guidance at home, if you're first generation, that means that there's probably no one in your family that even has a clue what you're doing. But you know, we're here in a platform that is allowing you to meet others that were in your shoes at some time, right? So there might be other students walking around that maybe have answers because they've been here a semester more than you, right? So always ask questions, always be willing to open up yourself. You know, it's okay to be vulnerable and not know everything. I think a lot of the times, you know, especially coming from like a Mexican background, you're very prideful and you don't want people to know that you don't know everything or that you need support. But I think, you know, taking that shield off and saying it's okay not to know everything, it's okay for me to be vulnerable and ask questions, because you're gonna be surprised as to what help you're gonna get.
So I will follow up with making sure that, you know, you ask questions, you know, that you seek help. Many times we're really bad. I'm like, I'll speak for myself. I was really bad at asking for help when I was going through college. I'm like, I wouldn't ask for help sometimes because I didn't even know what was the question, right? So definitely, if you have already you know, identify those professors or faculty or staff members that you feel comfortable with, you know, just go and ask them the questions that you have been having in your head for a while. Like, I'm struggling with this class. I'm like, what do you recommend? You know, start those dialogues. And it is very important, to be vulnerable. And that is sharing that you are having a struggle. That you're having a struggle, whether it's academics, you know, or personally, because your personal life outside of school does affect your academics, and it is very important to ask for help. So that's my takeaway.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I would, all three of you culminated the what I see as a hurdle is first gen students. And I mean, I even would say just students in general, there's this sense of fear or maybe embarrassment of asking the questions. And so just like I was saying when I was a student and undergrad myself, find your posse, find your people here, and find a professor that you can talk to, or and I guarantee, okay, maybe I'm way too optimistic for it, but I'm gonna say this anyway, that if you ask a professor, I am gonna be optimistic that anyone will say, yes, I wanna help you, and if they don't know the answer, they will guide you to the answer. If you ever hit a professor that is like, I have no time for you or whatnot, that hurts me, then come to one of us, because I think the four of us are those type of people that will help you to find where you need to go. But asking the questions, definitely. If only I asked the questions, I think I would have had a much better university experience. I didn't ask any questions. So
thank you all again. And then my next question is, what are some of the changes you noticed between your freshman and your sophomore year? Were there any personal, academic changes that you learned from that first year that impacted the years later?
Challenging, right? Like Ramon was saying too, and I'm sure most of us here, I won't assume, but working, right? Working, so it was difficult to self-reflect. You're hustling, right? You're making sure that you can provide for yourself and help out your family. And so it's difficult for me to self-reflect often, like, cool, I did that course, I did that, and you gotta move on. It's difficult to often self-reflect. I mean, honestly, probably almost 20 years later, I'm self-reflecting on this question now. So I'm looking at it like, what do I say? Personal, academic, I wish I could tell you. I need more time for that question, right? So maybe that's why I did go into philosophy. Maybe 10 years from now I'll answer it. But it's really that it's often difficult. And maybe that's just some advice I would provide, is take some time for yourself to self-reflect in between and during the semester too. And as you know, all of us would say, if you do have, it's easy that, let me say this, universalize and say, because I had a bad experience with this counselor, right, with this staff member, with this faculty member, all of them are jerks, or all of them are bad, or all of them. Go to someone that does care, because I promise you there is someone that gives a damn, right? That will go out, I mean, I hate to say go out of their way, but they will do what's the right thing, in this case, to help you, walk you. I've seen Professor Corona, I've done this, and I'm sure you folks as well, walk a student in basic needs. And I say, look, there's nothing, there can be, if you see it that way, but there's nothing embarrassing of saying that I'm in an economic place right now where I can't help myself completely, and it needs a part of that safety net, right? I have no issue telling you, my mom either, that she was part of fact Ramon and I know each other outside of ABC as well. I actually applied to be assistant, so he was over here my boss for some while as well. And he was great boss, right? And so along with David too, different individual from Laco, but my mom, right, being the one that asking questions always, as we were talking earlier, you see the Latina moms are just moms, right, with the kids. You're going to college, I'm gonna ask questions and make sure that you get it, right? My mom was the same way after I graduated, master's in philosophy. There weren't any jobs in the philosophy factory. So she's asking around, right? And they said, well, there's this position over here, admin assistant. And I did it for a while in Laco until I came over here and working for that in Palmdale. So, I don't know if that answers the question, but there's a little bit of it.
Yeah. Well, you know, from freshman into sophomore year, I realized that I needed to be a better student, right? When some of those grades came in, so I was proud to be there, but I knew that I needed to step up. So I did have, you know, some classes that were a bit challenging. So I had to learn to balance work and school, because, you know, I was working a lot of hours. So I knew that was affecting my schooling, my academics. So I learned to manage my time a little bit better and dedicate more time to my study time.
Some of the changes that I noticed for myself was that in my freshman year, I had to take what was back then known as developmental math, and I failed it twice. And so what I learned out of that experience and passing it the third time was in regards to how to be a better student. So that meant I'm like going to tutoring outside, right? So learning center here, meeting with your professors during office hours, you know, go and check in with them whenever you get an exam back. I also learned how to, you know, take better notes, because sometimes my notes was just, you know, writing everything down that was on the wall, but I never went and reviewed them afterwards or cleaned them up. So I learned how to become a better student. And on top of that, I also learned to manage my time a little bit better by getting a job on campus. So that really helped, because it allowed me to be less shy and also like get more involved on campus. So that really opened my experience in regards to knowing that I don't have to do college by myself, knowing that there were other people that were just struggling just as much as I was in developmental math then, and who were just trying to get out of their comfort zone.
For me, between first and second, or freshman and sophomore year, I decided to stay living in the dorms for 2 years, because it just felt more stable for me, because I wasn't ready to, because I was working the 3 jobs, but I how to pay the tuition. I didn't even know what I was doing. I mean, I really didn't know what I was doing. I think I just was surviving. But just staying in the dorms for 2 years allowed me to have that stability of, okay, I'm still in this place. I was able to live with a girl that was a floor mate, and we lived together in the same dorm floor. Still have the dining option, so I didn't have to worry yet about how to cook or those kinds of things, because I'm a rebel. I do not cook. I don't like any of that stuff. So that was definitely a difference, that many of my freshman friends, they all had apartments and I was staying in the dorms. The other thing, definitely time managing, really understanding the time management aspect of the study skills, the note-taking skills, how much time should I give to, my homework for this week or the next week. And I'm not even gonna lie, I'm gonna be so open here, therapy. I had to go to a therapist, a mental health, because I was struggling. When you go from the Antelope Valley and go to Paraclete, which is, we had 100 people in my class, 115 tops, to being in a lecture hall with 500 students, and you're a number to the professor. The professor doesn't know you at all, I guarantee it. Unless you get into your smaller classes, then they will start knowing you. But I had to get to know the graduate assistant. They were the office hour, because they were grading my work. So understanding the difference, I wasn't in Kansas anymore. I was so in the bubble clouds of naivete, and so going from freshman to sophomore year, I kind of felt like, okay, I'm at Berkeley, there's 35,000 students, I'm one of those individuals, and I'm gonna navigate with a different lens. I'm not gonna have the small town mindset. And so I turned into like big city, which I think is why I've always lived in big cities, because I learned how to navigate in that. But my mental health was also part of the struggle. So I found a therapist and it was good. And then the other thing I would just say is learning financial literacy should be something for everyone.
Yes.
And I think that because I had to work so many jobs, get the paycheck, didn't know what to do with it, and then they say, here, have a credit card, you get a free t-shirt, and I literally would sign up for every single credit card because I wanted a free t-shirt. I mean, I made some really bad choices, so don't make the same choices. Get yourself in debt.
They don't allow that anymore.
Oh, good, see? I'm so happy to hear that.
Thank you all again. And then I'm gonna ask these 2 questions back to back, and whatever you all feel comfortable sharing, please share. How does it feel to be the first member of your family to attend college? And what advice would you give first generation students?
So the moment that sticks with me was graduating from CSUN on my birthday in 2010. And my tío coming up to me and saying that we'll use you now as a model for our kids and your cousins, right, in that sense. So yeah, that stuck with me, right? I'm holding back tears, right? It really stuck with me, and it was great for me. Again, I didn't really have a lot of time to self-reflect, because you're just doing your thing. You're happy you graduated, right? Finally, right? But that stuck with me, and so it is that, and often we don't see each other, and if you all, I say, have seen, I mean, Carla, you seem like you're, I say women mature faster than physiologically, and many reasons I see that. For me, it wasn't until I was teaching an ethics class and seeing myself as a role model, and whether we like it or not, we're placed into these positions, and these awesome positions, I would say, was a 50-year-old Latina. I think she was from El Salvador, and came up to me and said, I'd never seen a Latino professor before. I'm gonna tell my son that it's possible, right? So, I mean, it took me back to graduating, and so it's just such a, especially in communities with people of color, how we see education as something that can lead us to greater things, and never lose that spirit or that knowledge or that ganas, right, to move forward. There's gonna be a lot of people and naysayers that say that don't pursue education, don't do this, they're wrong, right? In the long run, they'll be wrong, they'll always be wrong, right? And so I guess that goes with the advice of the first generation students is, I 100% agree, right? With Carla, and my wife often says, you know what? There's too many things that are theoretical, when am I gonna use this in life, right? I agree with that. I think we should have more financial literacy and things that are very practical. But I go back to this funny philosopher, Bertrand Russell, who said, be careful of the practical man too, because if we only say that we're gonna teach those things that are practical, then we have nothing to go beyond. So take example often as Google. When you go apply to Google to get a position with them, they don't say, oh, write up a code or a program for us. So a lot of people can do that. That's how you got your damn degree, right? What we want is, we're gonna give you a bunch of these unsolvable problems, and we wanna see what you're going to do with them, to think and elevate you at a higher way, right, into that theoretical process. So it leads me over here, I'll leave this and I'll be quiet after this, is Adam Grant, if any of you have heard of him, who's an organizational psychologist. So he just wrote this recently and said, hey parents, you don't have to push your kids to choose a practical major. The goal of liberal arts education is not to build careers, it's to broaden minds. No one knows which skills will be useful in the future. The true value of college is learning how to think and learn. So I hope that sticks with you. I hope that sticks with you, because it's not just what is it my major and how much money. That's important, of course it is, right? But you give it your all, right? You give that ganas, right? And those things will come naturally to you, right? They really will. Sometimes you don't see it. Sometimes it takes time, but it will happen.
Great answer. Well, I think I talked about it earlier in question number one. You know, there's a sense of pride, right, and honor to be that individual that your uncles and your aunts, your cousins are looking up to. But it's also, you know, challenging and difficult, because I remember there was one of my uncles wanted me to convince his son to go to college, right? And I was like, that's up to him, right? I could only share my experience and what I was able to gain from it, but it's not my job to convince him to go, right? Because it's not for everyone. You know, education is important, but sometimes there's other avenues to that. So, you know, there was a point where I was like, I don't want to convince people to go to college, right? I know they're my cousins and I wish them, you know, greatness, but if they're not sure and if they're challenging their parents, you shouldn't go to college because your parents told you to, right? Most of us at some level do, but we stay because we want to. We finish because we want to. What advice would I give my first generation student self, or to give to you, is you're a student, you know. If you struggle academically, right, as long as you pass your classes, focus your other strengths. You know, I said earlier that I found my passion by accident. It was by accident, but also because I made a lot of relationships. I found a lot of people that were in positions that could help me, and I was able to get opportunities, not because I was a 4.0 student, but because I made friends with them and I asked them questions, and I was like, well, you know, how long did it take you to get to where you're at? You know, I did a lot of informational interviews that I learned from one of my friends that I met in college, where he wanted to be a commercial realtor, and he had never met a commercial realtor. So what he started doing is he started calling, you know, every corner, you know, Seabury, you know, he would see the companies and he would call them and he like, hey, I'm a student. My goal is to be a commercial realtor. Is it okay if I come and interview you? And half of them would say, yeah, sure, let's come on over, right? So I started doing that with people that I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting job. When I decided that I might not necessarily want to be a highway patrol officer, I started, you know, interviewing people that I looked up to, and I said, you know, and then I realized that, you know, your degree sometimes doesn't matter, you know, for what you're gonna actually work in. It's just something that can help you get there. You know, I remember that was also a challenging thing when I got accepted into college and I was gonna go, and I told would tell my family that I was a human development major. Everybody would, you know, in Spanish would be like, ¿Y en qué vas a trabajar, right? What are you gonna work in? And I was like, I don't know, it's human development, right? That's what I wanna do. I'm interested you know, how the human body develops and psychologically, physically, but, you know, physiology and all that. But they would always ask me, okay, but what are you gonna do with that? Where are you gonna work? And, you know, I think in other countries, you know, like Mexico, the degree that you get in is where you're gonna end up, right? And here in the United States, we have a lot of programs that it's kind of just an avenue to get you into some sort of career, but it's not necessarily where you're gonna end up, right? So just be curious and ask questions. And you know, you'll find you're a student already. You already made it, right? That's the hardest thing is sometimes just getting in.
Yeah, very true. I'll have to say for myself, being a first generation student, it makes me feel proud, you know. But it also makes me feel proud because I see, you know, what it does to my dad. You know, I grew up in a single parent household. I grew up with my dad, and seeing his face of proudness makes me proud. But at the same time, I'm like, it does come with a lot of challenges that you're always being the first one to having to discover, this new path of land, right? I'm like, you're going, after you graduate, it's like, okay, well, how do you find a job? You know, that itself is like, you're always learning, and there's always something else to learn, you know. So yes, if I have a lot of pride in being first generation, but at the same time also know that it does come with, you know, a few more bumps on the road, but you guys could all do it. Do not get discouraged whatsoever. If I would have to give you guys any type of advice being like first gen, I would say to believe in yourself and always be kind, you know, because it's a lot of work. I will also say to you guys that hard work and dedication do pay off, you know, so continue working hard, continue putting in the hours, the time, and the energy, and it will pay off. Maybe not immediately how we all want this instant gratification, but it will at some point. The struggle that you may feel right now, it's only momentary. It will pass. And if you are feeling struggles, you know, make sure that you're seeking for support. You will be making lifelong friends. So, you know, make sure to also invest a little bit of time in that. And lastly will be, no one does this alone. So you don't have to go through it alone. Make sure that you're looking for support. Like us up here at this table. Even the people who put up this event, you know, are here to support you guys.
How does it feel to be the first member of your family to attend college? For a long, long time, I'm not gonna lie, I felt shame because my siblings made me feel like I was an outsider because they projected that they thought I was better than them, and that's not at all what I was doing. I just wanted to be free and fly and learn and go to school. So I kind of felt ashamed and isolated because I was the only one in my entire family, and I had like 30 cousins, and I literally the only one in the entire Corona side of the family that has gotten at least a master's degree. So as a first generation student, and finally though, I stopped letting that negativity take over, and I started to say, no, I'm really proud. And then when I just got this job of the full-time faculty, it's been 21 years in the making, so the hard work will eventually pay off. My dad, for the first time, said to me in a very, very long time, I'm so proud of you, mija. You have done something that no one in our family has done. You have gone to school, you've gotten a master's, and now you're a profesora. Like, he just said it with such pride, and he's a musician, so he's also very dramatic too. So I feel like I was almost given a recent permission to be proud of being the first gen student. And I think one of my siblings passed away 2 years ago, but he was proud of me, and my other ones, I hope and think they're proud of me. We're not very we don't share our feelings. I don't know how everyone's families are, but we don't share our feelings too much. We don't hug a lot. But so that would be my thought there. And as far as the advice, definitely resilience. Be resilient. It's gonna take a lot of work, a lot of hard work, but believe in yourself and you can do it. And you will get through all of the obstacles and struggles by believing in yourself, but finding your people. If anyone leaves with anything, find your posse. Find your people that will believe in you and be like, yes, you can do this, you got this. Also, travel abroad. If you have the opportunity at your school to go on a travel abroad program, do it. Get out of the mindset that the Antelope Valley is all that exists. I went out since 1995 to I came back in 2010. So I was gone for about 15 years, but then I came back because I needed to go explore. I've been to many countries, and it was all through school. Guess who paid for it? Not me. School paid for it. So finding those scholarships, finding those opportunities to really just go see the world. There's so much beauty out there. Be open to critically thinking, kind of going back to what Professor Mendoza was saying of critically think, and don't just take the paper that your professor gives you as fact. I mean, yeah, 1 + 1 is 2. That's that. But like, or is it? Or is it? But what I'm saying is, have a conversation, ask the questions, be curious, and network. That would be the other thing. Network. And I tell my students currently this: network. Ask people. I love that one example you gave, that they just called and say, hey, can I interview you? Network. So, that's what I would say.